In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, where stars burned like ancient lanterns and planets drifted in cosmic ballets, an unprecedented event was about to unfold. The Galactic Council, a coalition of beings from thousands of worlds, had gathered in their crystalline citadel orbiting the binary star system of Zorath 7. For millennia, they had maintained peace among the diverse species that called this corner of the universe home. Yet today, an atmosphere of electric tension crackled through the council chambers, thick enough to make even the most seasoned diplomats shift uncomfortably in their seats. At the center of this cosmic drama stood Captain Elara Thompson, a human whose very presence defied every precedent in galactic history. Born on Earth's first interstellar colony, she had risen through the ranks of humanity's fledgling space program with a combination of brilliance, determination, and an uncanny ability to bridge cultural divides between species. Her reputation as a mediator who could resolve conflicts where others had failed had earned her both admiration and suspicion across the stars. The circumstances leading to this moment were as extraordinary as they were unexpected. 3 standard cycles ago, the mysterious Xylorian Empire, rulers of the Outer Rim territories, had abruptly withdrawn from all diplomatic relations. Their once bustling trade routes fell silent, their ambassadors vanished without explanation, and their vast fleets disappeared into the void. Then, just when tensions threatened to boil over into interstellar war, a single transmission arrived at the Council's primary communications array. It wasn't from the Xylorians themselves, but from someone, or something, far more enigmatic, the alien Queen. The Queen, known only through ancient legends and fragmented historical records, was said to be the last surviving member of an ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing eons ago. Her reappearance alone would have been cause for astonishment, but her message contained an even more shocking revelation. She had chosen a successor, not from her own kind, nor from any of the established galactic powers, but from humanity. Specifically, she had chosen Captain Elara Thompson. As Elara stood before the assembled representatives of countless worlds, she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. Some regarded her with open curiosity, others with barely concealed hostility. The insectoid Vorthons clicked their mandibles in disapproval, while the ethereal Lumini shimmered with what might have been either interest or disdain. Even her fellow humans seemed unsure how to react, caught between pride and apprehension at this unprecedented development. What made the situation even more complex was the nature of the Queen's choice. According to the cryptic message, Elara wasn't merely being offered a ceremonial position or ambassadorial role. The Queen intended to pass on her entire legacy, including knowledge, power, and responsibilities that spanned galaxies and transcended time itself. This transfer of authority would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the universe, potentially making Elara the most influential being in existence. Yet despite the enormity of the situation, Elara remained outwardly composed. Her training as a diplomat had taught her the value of maintaining control in high-pressure situations, though inwardly she grappled with doubts and questions that threatened to overwhelm her. Why had the Queen chosen her? What did this mean for humanity's place in the galaxy? And perhaps most importantly, what would accepting such a role cost her personally? As the council deliberated around her, Elara found herself reflecting on her journey to this moment. From her childhood watching Earth's first tentative steps into the stars, to her years serving aboard diplomatic vessels, each experience had shaped her into the person standing here now. But nothing could have prepared her for this, the decision that would affect not just her life, but potentially the fate of countless civilizations across the galaxy. The chamber doors hissed open, and a hush fell over the assembly as a procession entered. At its head floated a crystalline entity, its form shifting between states of matter too quickly for the eye to follow. This was Ambassador Kryll of the Synthari Collective, the Queen's designated messenger. Behind him came representatives of various factions, each carrying ceremonial artifacts symbolizing their people's histories and hopes. Elara watched as Kryll approached, his movements precise yet somehow organic. "Captain Thompson," he began, his voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously, "the Queen has entrusted me with the details of your selection." He extended a tendril-like appendage, and a holographic display materialized between them, showing constellations rearranging themselves into patterns that pulsed with meaning beyond human comprehension. "The Queen observed you during the tri-species conflict resolution last cycle," Kryll continued. "Your ability to unite the warring factions of the Draconis system demonstrated qualities she believes essential for her successor: empathy that transcends species boundaries, strategic thinking that considers long-term consequences, and courage that doesn't falter in the face of overwhelming odds. A murmur rippled through the chamber as delegates exchanged glances. Many remembered that particular conflict, how Alara had spent 72 hours in continuous negotiation, refusing food and rest until she'd forged a fragile peace between the dragon-like Draconi and their mammalian neighbors. Some had dismissed it as beginner's luck, others had seen it as a fluke. Now they understood it had been something far more significant. HFY's next words sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Queen's choice isn't merely symbolic. She offers access to technologies and knowledge that could advance any species by millennia. Medical treatments that could eradicate genetic diseases. Energy sources that would make current power systems obsolete. Transportation methods that could traverse galaxies in moments rather than lifetimes. Alara felt her pulse quicken as the implications sank in. These weren't just tools or weapons. They represented the potential to reshape existence itself. But with that power came responsibility, and choices that could determine the fate of billions. She thought of the ethical dilemmas humanity had already faced with lesser technologies. The debates over genetic modification, artificial intelligence, climate engineering. How much greater would these challenges be when scaled to galactic proportions? The ambassador paused, allowing the information to settle. However, there is a condition. The Queen requires an answer within 3 solar cycles. During this time, you must undergo a series of trials designed to test your worthiness. These aren't mere formalities. They are experiences that will change you fundamentally, revealing truths about yourself and the universe that cannot be unlearned. A representative of the Vorthan hive rose, his chitinous body clicking with agitation. This is unacceptable. A single human cannot be trusted with such power. What guarantees do we have that she won't favor her own species? Before Alara could respond, another voice cut through the growing tension. Elder Silra of the Lumini drifted forward, her translucent form casting prismatic patterns across the chamber walls. Perhaps the question isn't whether she'll favor her species, but whether she can transcend species entirely. The Queen's choice suggests she sees potential in this human to become something more than merely human. The statement hung in the air, heavy with implication. Alara felt the weight of countless possibilities pressing down on her shoulders. To accept meant embracing a destiny that would separate her forever from everything familiar. To refuse would mean turning away from opportunities that could benefit all sentient life. Either way, there was no path back to the life she'd known. As the debate raged around her, Alara found herself focusing on the faces of those present. Each species represented here carried its own burdens, its own hopes. The reptilian Drakthir delegation bore scars from centuries of environmental devastation. The aquatic Nereid contingent shimmered with anxiety about their ocean world's rising temperatures. Even the seemingly invincible mechanical intelligences of the Cygnus Collective showed signs of wear, their polished surfaces marred by microscopic fractures that spoke of internal conflicts. Her thoughts turned to Earth, to the family she hadn't seen in 2 standard years. Her younger brother Marcus, who still dreamed of becoming an astrophysicist. Her mother, who had taught her the importance of listening to understand rather than to respond. Her father, whose stories of humanity's struggles and triumphs had shaped her worldview. Would they understand if she accepted? Could they comprehend the scope of what was being asked of her? The chamber lights dimmed as HFY activated another display. This time, images of devastated worlds appeared. Planets ravaged by war, ecosystems collapsed under the weight of technological advancement, civilizations that had reached for the stars only to burn themselves out. These are the stakes, he intoned. The Queen's knowledge could prevent such tragedies. But wielded improperly, it could create catastrophes beyond imagination. Alara felt a chill run through her as she recognized some of the planets. They were case studies from her diplomatic training, examples of what happened when power was concentrated in the wrong hands. The realization hit her with sudden clarity. This wasn't just about accepting or rejecting power. It was about understanding that true leadership meant carrying the weight of every possible outcome, good and bad. Time seemed to stretch as Alara processed the magnitude of the decision before her. Around her, the chamber buzzed with increasingly heated discussions. Representatives from different species formed clusters, their body language betraying alliances and animosities that had existed long before this moment. The insectoid Vorthans clicked their mandibles in rapid-fire patterns, their antennae twitching with barely contained aggression. Nearby, the aquatic nereids communicated through subtle shifts in their bioluminescent patterns, creating intricate light displays that spoke volumes to those who understood their language. Elder Silra of the Lumini drifted closer to Elara, her translucent form pulsing with gentle waves of color. "You carry more than just your own species' future in your hands," she whispered, her voice resonating directly in Elara's mind. "Each decision you make will ripple through dimensions we barely understand. The Queen's choice suggests she sees in you the potential to navigate these complexities with wisdom." The weight of these words settled heavily on Elara's shoulders. She thought of her years serving as a diplomat, mediating conflicts between species whose very ways of perceiving reality differed fundamentally from human understanding. She recalled the time she'd helped broker peace between the gas-based Zephyrians and the silicon-based Crystalline Collective, two species whose basic needs and survival requirements were so different that violence had seemed inevitable. That success had come not from imposing human solutions, but from finding common ground in mathematical principles that transcended biology. Ambassador KRYL's crystalline form shifted, catching the chamber's light in fractal patterns. "The trials you must face are designed to reveal your true nature," he explained. "They will challenge not just your intellect, but your emotional core. The Queen seeks someone who can balance logic with compassion, strength with vulnerability, certainty with the willingness to adapt." Elara's mind raced through the implications. She thought of the countless species represented in this chamber, each with their own definitions of leadership and power. To the warrior races, strength might mean physical prowess or tactical genius. To the intellectual species, it might mean mastery of knowledge or technological advancement. But the Queen's criteria seemed to transcend these conventional measures, seeking something more fundamental. Her thoughts turned to humanity's own struggles with power throughout history. From ancient empires to modern democracies, the lessons had often been learned through failure and loss. She remembered studying the collapse of Earth's first attempts at global governance, how centralized power had led to corruption and rebellion. The painful evolution toward more balanced systems of authority had been marked by generations of sacrifice and compromise. A sudden movement caught her attention. The draconian delegate, whose species she had helped reconcile with their mammalian neighbors, approached her position. His scaled features, usually arranged in expressions of perpetual skepticism, softened slightly. "Your actions in our system demonstrated something rare," he rumbled, his voice carrying undertones that vibrated in her chest. "You didn't seek to impose solutions. You listened. You adapted. You found paths forward that honored both sides." The significance of his words struck Elara with renewed force. In choosing her, the Queen wasn't simply selecting a representative of humanity. She was recognizing a quality that transcended species boundaries. The ability to truly listen, to understand perspectives radically different from one's own, to find connections where others saw only division. These were skills honed through years of diplomacy, but they were also deeply personal traits that had defined her approach to life since childhood. Yet the enormity of what was being asked remained daunting. Accepting the Queen's offer meant stepping beyond the realm of mortal concerns, embracing a destiny that would fundamentally alter her existence. She thought of her parents, who had taught her the value of service and responsibility. Her mother's quiet strength in facing life's challenges. Her father's unwavering belief in humanity's potential. Both had instilled in her a deep sense of duty, but also the wisdom to recognize when responsibility became burden. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavier as representatives from different factions began voicing their concerns and expectations. Some saw opportunity in her potential ascension, a chance to influence the direction of galactic development through her decisions. Others viewed her with suspicion, their species' histories of oppression and exploitation coloring their perceptions. A few, like Elder Silra, seemed to genuinely believe in the possibility of positive change. As the discussions continued, Elara found herself focusing on the interconnectedness of all the species present. Despite their differences, they shared common threads: the drive to survive, the desire to understand, the need to connect. The Queen's choice suggested that these universal aspects of sentience were more important than the superficial distinctions that divided them. It was a perspective that resonated deeply with her own experiences as a diplomat, where success had always depended on finding and nurturing these shared foundations. The crystalline display flickered again, showing new patterns that seemed to dance between order and chaos. Ambassador KRYL interpreted the shifting forms. The Queen wishes to convey that time is both ally and adversary. While 3 solar cycles may seem generous, the transformation required cannot be rushed. Each trial must unfold naturally, revealing truths that cannot be forced or fabricated. Elara nodded slowly, understanding that this wasn't merely a test of endurance or capability. It was a process of becoming something new, something that couldn't be predicted or controlled. The realization brought both fear and excitement. The awareness that whatever path she chose would lead to a destination beyond her current comprehension. As the chamber lights dimmed further, casting elongated shadows across the crystalline floor, Elara felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. The silence that fell wasn't empty but charged with expectation, each species holding its breath for her response. Yet she knew that any answer given now would be premature, shaped more by emotion than understanding. The trials ahead would demand more than words. They would require actions that demonstrated her readiness to shoulder the responsibilities of the Queen's legacy. In the quiet moments that followed, Elara found herself contemplating not just the immediate decision before her, but the broader implications of the Queen's choice. The very fact that an ancient, presumably all-powerful being had selected a human, not just any human, but her specifically, suggested that the Queen valued qualities humanity had developed through its struggles and imperfections. Qualities that perhaps even the Queen's own species had lacked or lost over millennia. She thought about humanity's unique position in the galaxy. Neither the strongest nor the wisest, neither the oldest nor the most advanced. Yet humans possessed an adaptability born of constant change, a creativity fueled by limitations, and a capacity for growth that came from acknowledging and learning from mistakes. These traits had allowed humanity to survive ice ages, plagues, wars, and technological revolutions. They had enabled humans to reach for the stars despite countless failures and setbacks. The realization struck her with sudden clarity. The Queen wasn't offering power, she was offering partnership. The trials weren't tests to be passed or failed but opportunities to grow into something greater. Each challenge would push her beyond her current limits, forcing her to confront aspects of herself and the universe that she might otherwise never encounter. The knowledge and abilities promised weren't gifts to be wielded arbitrarily but tools to be mastered through experience and understanding. Around her, the representatives continued their debates, their arguments weaving a complex tapestry of hopes, fears, and expectations. Some species saw her potential ascension as a threat to their autonomy, while others viewed it as a chance to advance their agendas. The more cynical delegates suspected hidden motives behind the Queen's choice, while the idealists hoped for a new era of cooperation and progress. Through it all, Elara maintained her composure, letting the various perspectives wash over her without judgment. Her mind returned to the fundamental question: what did it mean to be worthy of such a legacy? Was it about possessing certain innate qualities, or about having the capacity to develop them? The Queen's observation of her during the Draconis conflict suggested that worthiness wasn't a static state but a dynamic process. It wasn't about being perfect or infallible but about demonstrating the potential for growth and the willingness to embrace difficult truths. The crystalline display shifted again, showing patterns that reminded Elara of neural networks, complex webs of connections forming and reforming in response to stimuli. She realized that the Queen's legacy wasn't just about individual power but about fostering connections between species, ideas, and possibilities. It was about creating a network of understanding that could withstand the pressures of diversity and change. As she contemplated these revelations, Elara became aware of a subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. The representatives, regardless of their species or agendas, seemed to be responding to her growing understanding. Their body language softened, their arguments became less confrontational, their gazes less challenging. It was as if her internal transformation was affecting the collective consciousness of the gathering. Ambassador KRYLL's crystalline form pulsed with approval. "The first trial has already begun," he announced softly. "It isn't about solving problems or proving capabilities. It's about understanding the nature of connection itself, how individual choices resonate through the web of existence, how personal growth can catalyze collective evolution." The significance of his words sank in gradually. The Queen's choice wasn't just about selecting a successor, it was about initiating a process of transformation that would affect the entire galaxy. By observing her reactions, her thought processes, her interactions with the various species present, the Queen was assessing not just her current state but her potential to evolve into something that could bridge divides and foster understanding on a cosmic scale. Elara felt a profound sense of responsibility settle over her, accompanied by an unexpected surge of hope. The challenges ahead wouldn't be easy. They would demand everything she had and more. But they also represented an opportunity to contribute to something greater than herself, to help shape the future of countless species and civilizations. The decision before her wasn't just about accepting or rejecting power. It was about embracing a destiny that could redefine what it meant to lead, to serve, and to connect across the vast distances of space and understanding. As the chamber's lights began to brighten again, signaling the formal conclusion of the initial presentation, Ilara knew that her journey was just beginning. The trials ahead would test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine, revealing truths about herself and the universe that would change her forever. Yet she also understood that true growth came not from avoiding challenges but from facing them with courage and openness, trusting that each step forward would bring her closer to understanding the full scope of what the Queen's choice represented. The crystalline display dissolved into motes of light that danced through the chamber, leaving behind a profound silence. Ilara stood at the center of this cosmic pause, feeling the weight of countless possibilities pressing against her consciousness. Around her, representatives from 100 worlds maintained their positions, their various forms creating a living mosaic of galactic diversity. The air thrummed with unspoken questions and unformed futures. Ambassador Kryl's form shifted, refracting the ambient light into patterns that seemed to pulse with meaning. "The Queen awaits your response," he stated, though his tone suggested he already understood the complexity of her position. "But remember, Captain Thompson, acceptance doesn't require immediate commitment. The trials themselves will guide your understanding." Ilara's mind raced through the implications of this statement. The Queen's approach wasn't one of ultimatums or deadlines but of gradual revelation. Each trial would build upon the last, creating a foundation of experience and insight that would inform her final decision. Yet even this understanding brought its own challenges. How could she prepare for tests whose nature she couldn't anticipate? What resources could she draw upon when facing experiences designed to transcend conventional knowledge? Her gaze swept across the chamber, noting the varied responses to her situation. The Vorthan Hive representatives maintained their aggressive postures, their clicking mandibles suggesting ongoing calculations of advantage and risk. The Nereid delegation shimmered with patterns that indicated deep philosophical consideration, their liquid forms undulating with the rhythm of ancient tides. Even the mechanical intelligences of the Cygnus Collective displayed subtle variations in their energy signatures, hinting at internal debates among their distributed consciousness. A sudden realization struck her. The trials wouldn't just test her individual capabilities, they would examine her ability to navigate these complex relationships. The Queen's legacy wasn't meant to exist in isolation but to serve as a nexus point for galactic cooperation and understanding. Each species present represented not just their own interests but potential allies or obstacles in the path she might choose to walk. The chamber's temperature seemed to drop as Elder Silra approached once more, her luminescent form casting prismatic shadows across the crystalline floor. "Remember, Child of Earth, that power isn't measured by what one controls but by what one influences. The Queen's choice reflects not just your potential but the potential of all species to transcend their limitations through connection." These words resonated deeply within Ilara, aligning with everything she had learned through her diplomatic career. True influence came not from dominance but from understanding, from building bridges rather than walls, from finding common ground in seemingly irreconcilable differences. The trials ahead would likely challenge these beliefs, pushing her to confront situations where easy answers and familiar approaches would fail. Her thoughts turned to the practical aspects of preparing for such unknown challenges. The Queen's technology and knowledge represented possibilities that could revolutionize every aspect of galactic civilization. Medical advancements could eradicate diseases that had plagued species for millennia. Energy solutions could transform resource-scarce worlds into thriving habitats. Transportation innovations could unite distant colonies in ways currently impossible. Yet each of these benefits carried corresponding risks: the potential for misuse, the danger of dependency, the threat of creating new inequalities. The chamber's atmosphere shifted again as various species began proposing conditions and safeguards. Some demanded transparency in the sharing of knowledge, while others advocated for strict controls on technological dissemination. A few voices called for complete rejection of the Queen's offer, citing historical examples of advanced civilizations destroying themselves through hubris. Through it all, Ilara maintained her focus, understanding that these debates reflected deeper concerns about power, trust, and the nature of progress itself. Ambassador Carwell's crystalline structure emitted a soft chime, drawing attention back to the central issue. "The first trial begins at dawn of the third cycle," he announced. "Until then, Captain Thompson must remain in seclusion, allowing her mind to attune to the frequencies of the Queen's domain. This preparation period is crucial. It will determine how effectively she can engage with the trials themselves." The significance of this requirement sank in gradually. The seclusion wasn't just a traditional formality but a necessary step in aligning her consciousness with realities beyond normal perception. It suggested that the trials would involve more than physical or intellectual challenges. They would probe the very fabric of her being, testing her ability to perceive and interact with dimensions of existence that most species couldn't even conceptualize. As the chamber began to empty, representatives withdrawing to their respective quarters to consider the implications of recent developments, Elara felt the first stirrings of what might be called destiny settling around her shoulders. The weight wasn't oppressive but rather energizing, a call to growth that resonated with her deepest aspirations and fears. She thought of all the diplomatic missions she had undertaken, each one teaching her something new about the nature of connection and understanding. Now she faced the ultimate mission, one that would require her to apply everything she had learned while pushing far beyond her known limits. The crystalline walls of the chamber seemed to pulse with anticipation, their facets catching and refracting the light in patterns that suggested infinite possibilities. As Elara prepared to enter her period of seclusion, she understood that the real challenge lay not in facing external tests but in confronting the truth of her own potential. The Queen's choice had set her on a path where every step forward would reveal new horizons of understanding, where every decision would ripple through the fabric of galactic society, and where every moment of doubt would be matched by opportunities for growth and transformation. In the quiet moments before her seclusion began, Elara allowed herself to feel the full weight of what lay ahead. Not fear, not exactly, but a profound awareness of the responsibility she was being offered. Not just to humanity, not just to the species gathered here, but to the very concept of connection and understanding across the stars. The trials would show her whether she was ready to bear that responsibility, whether she could transform potential into purpose, and whether she could help guide the galaxy toward a future that honored the diversity of its inhabitants while fostering the unity needed for true progress. As the chamber doors sealed behind her, Elara stood alone in the crystalline sanctum, the hum of the Queen's energy resonating through her very core. She closed her eyes, feeling the first tendrils of the trials brushing against her consciousness, whispering of challenges that would reshape her soul. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if humanity's fragile spark could ignite a new era of unity, or chaos. Her mind reached out, not with fear, but with determination, ready to embrace whatever truths lay ahead. In that moment, she understood, this was not just about her, it was about all who had ever dreamed of connection beyond their stars. The Queen's voice echoed softly, timeless and infinite, "The choice begins within you." And as the first trial unfolded, Elara felt herself expanding, becoming something more than human, something vast and unknowable. Yet even as the transformation began, one thought anchored her. No matter what she became, she would carry the hopes of countless worlds in her heart. The galaxy watched, stunned, as the alien Queen's gamble unfolded, and humanity's place among the stars hung in the balance.